And in 83, when I came out of training, I learned a very interesting lesson. I learned that very few people globally have an understanding of home self-directed skincare. Most people in all socioeconomic groups, all ancestry groups, have very little concept on what skincare is on a home level.
Hey, this is Chad Namiro.
And I'm Kelly Namiro. Welcome to the Balancing Chaos podcast,
a lifestyle podcast where we will interview guests about wellness, business, and just about everything in between.
Our goal is to help you develop a lifestyle that promotes health, wholeness, and success. Through our conversations, we hope to inspire you to live a beautiful, full, and joyful life as you navigate balancing the chaos.
We hope you enjoy.
Dr. Harold Lancer is a celebrity dermatologist in Beverly Hills, California. I actually started seeing Dr. Lancer when I was 19 years old and I was going to school in Los Angeles. And I am so grateful that I did because he truly has taught me the foundation for everything that I know when it comes to preventative skincare. Dr. Lancer is a fellow of the American Academy of Dermatology and is affiliated with Cedars-Sinai and the UCLA Medical Center. He is a board-certified dermatologist and has been practicing Beverly Hills for more than 30 years. And so today, we are going to talk to Dr. Lancer about how to get that celebrity, youthful, glowy skin that doesn't seem to age, but also isn't overdone. We're going to talk skincare secrets and anti-aging tips. So everybody give a warm welcome to Dr. Lancer. Dr. Lancer, thank you for being here with us.
This is a great pleasure for me. So I hope the sound is good and that everybody gets the message, no matter what the questions are. So it's terrific. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
You as well, and you look great. Sound and video both good.
I'm glad to hear some success there, yeah.
So you've had a incredibly impressive career. I would just love to understand how you developed a passion for dermatology and how you really got into this whole field.
Yeah, it's actually a good question. I think for the listeners, it's important. You know, actually, the month of September that we're doing this podcast is my birthday month, and I will be 69 years old.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, and that means I only have 35 or 40 years more of active practice, so you better hurry in here. In any case, I can tell you that it's probably 60 years ago that I suffered a very significant burn when I was a child. My mom and dad were farmers in northeastern Connecticut, and it was a farm and a small farmhouse, and the boiler for the heating system in the house was in the basement. And every wintertime before needing to use the heat, my dad would what we call bleed the boiler, and it was full of hot water. And I was playing down there with my older brother, and I was going backward to catch a ball, and I fell into the basin of boiling water, which is a horrible sounding story, but it led to some good things. I had some significant severe burns. And being a very small farm town, there was no burn center. And in fact, I'm not even sure there was a dermatologist in that town. But there was a guy who looked, a physician who looked sort of like Marcus Welby. He was a family physician. And every day I would go and see this fellow with my mother. He would clean the wounds. He would put on special types of dressings. And to make the story short, this went on for weeks and months. And I learned that skin, if you treat it properly, human tissue can repair itself. And you can imagine the two of you know about health and wellness, et cetera. I think it's a take-home message for the viewers and the listeners in terms of if you give the body a chance, it can repair itself. And I must tell you, over a period of months, everything healed. And to this day, I have a tiny scar on my left hip the size of a postage stamp from what was severe burns. Purely by caring for the skin, it healed itself. And that's how I got interested in dermatology. And it happens to be, to this day, one of the main interests I have, making skin heal itself better. And even though I have a whole bunch of fancy toys to do that, the bottom line is the human being can really heal oneself.
That's incredible. Largest organ in the body, right?
The largest organ, I guess some people might say that the fat layer under the skin could be a little bit bigger. But nonetheless, with the proper diet, I think the skin still ranks one.
That's amazing. So tell us about your primary practice in Beverly Hills. When did you start that? And some of the milestones along the way. Obviously, you treat the who's who of not just California or Hollywood, if you will, but the world essentially. So what are some of the major milestones, and how'd you grow that practice meteorically as you did?
Well, also interesting. And I will tell you, when I finished my training, my undergraduate training at a university in Boston, Brandeis University, that was my undergraduate. And then I went to UC San Diego, the Salk Scripps Institute, and a little bit of time in the Navy to learn medicine. And then I went back east to the Harvard Medical School for dermatology. And that's where I actually became very interested in lasers. And as most of the listeners will know, a lot of the laser developments have been made in the last 40 years come out of the Mass General and the Brigham and Women's Hospital and all the Harvard affiliates. So it's the sort of thing where it was a hotbed of education, and it was fabulous, and my interest in lasers was there. And when I finished my training, I'm coming up on 40 years in practice. When we entered 2023, it'll be 40 years. Wow. Getting back to 1983, when I started private practice in Los Angeles, I started from scratch. None of my family members were in medicine. And I started dermatology, both medical and the repair part of it is the surgical part, where I was using a variety of what's called today energy-based devices to repair scars. And that's, I think, how I made my entry into the Los Angeles scene. I was using various types of early developed lasers to repair scars. So you can imagine, in the entertainment world, repairing scarred, damaged tissue was important then. The technology was far more primitive than it is today. And I sort of made my way into the entertainment world and the political world through repairing tissue, just like my tissue, burns, had been repaired. And so 83, I started practice with a handful of patients. And I was actually in probably an office in 83 that was about probably 30 by 40 feet. And then probably within a couple of years, it became a clinic with 3 or 4 rooms. And then another few years down the road, I opened my first main office, which was on Wilshire Boulevard, right across from Neiman Marcus in the penthouse. And that office, which I think was about 1989, was about 2,300 square feet. And it was a solo physician with a few staff, a lot of more advanced gadgets to repair scarred, damaged tissue, whether it's sun damage or surgical tissue or accident tissue. It was mainly a laser energy-based device practice. And I became known for that. And whether it was in the general population or the entertainment world, that was important. And from there, I was there for, 25 years until I built the current office on Rodeo, which is, 9,000 square feet.
Wow, that's impressive.
So I've had a very good run of good luck, and I'm very appreciative and thankful.
Good luck, and definitely good at what you do. You are the best at what you do. And I think that one thing that you mentioned, obviously, throughout the time that you started was lasers. I'm really curious, as Chad mentioned, you do the who's who of Hollywood. And when I come to see you, I've done everything from a peel to a laser to we do power peels and microdermabrasion. But what are the celebrities of Hollywood? What are they doing with their skin? Like what's the upkeep?
Well, it's a terrific question, because the majority of the public wants to ask the same question. And I can share with you that we see patients from 5 different continents. Yeah. In a given day, we'll see people from Europe, Asia, South Central America, Africa. It's just a potpourri of global visitors. And they all have very interesting concerns, because sometimes it's purely medical. Mm-hmm. Sometimes medical meaning like eczema, acne, psoriasis, the things that people know. Right. And then some people will come in because of purely beauty concerns, where they are in good shape. They just want to maintain that look. And some people come in because they have damage that needs repair and some variation thereof. And they always are asking, what does so-and-so do? Because sometimes my name is attached to some entertainment person or celebrity who's been in the press, and somehow my name comes up. But I can tell you that generally speaking, the entertainment group, which is your primary question, the entertainment group, male, female, 15-year-olds, 50-year-olds and beyond, are currently doing less is more.
That's the majority,
the majority of entertainment people, the celebrity visible people who make their living under the public microscope, are going to great lengths to underdo what is expected.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you that 10, 15, 20 years ago, that's the advantage of being in practice for 40 years. You've seen pretty much all sorts of variations. In the last 10 years or so, the less is more concept is important. So whether it's relaxing lines and folds, let's leave some of the folds, don't totally remove them. Some of the lines, a little bit of character is good. So when it comes to what's known as neuromodulators, the public knows it as Botox, but neuromodulators, it's just a kiss of neuromodulator to reduce an expression line, not totally put it to sleep. When it comes to volume replacement because of a hollow or a shadow, it's reduce the shadow a little bit, don't get rid of it totally.
Right.
So whether it's an expression line or a volume area or a symmetry area, and this is, by the way, from head to toe, because some people will come in for face, neck, chest area concerns, but other people will come in for hand, arm, shoulder, foot, leg, thigh. Some people will come in primarily the entertainment group. You see, they're fashion stylists, truly control their lives. So depending on what a project, whether it's film or television or stage or a concert or whatever it is, depending on what the circumstance requires, certain tissue is visible. So it may be on one occasion, their stylist wants the entire central part of the belly area exposed. Now that individual will want that area firmed. They don't want anything surgically done. They just want it firmed.
So what do you do for that?
No, so for in that circumstance, and by the way, it's not a quick fix. If anybody thinks that there are quick fixes to things, that's a rare event. It takes discipline to look your best, and the two of you know that very, very well. You have to have a program, and you have to stick with it.
Yeah. Whether
it's food, dietary things, beverage things, exercise things, meditation, etc. You have to have a program. You have to have a set goal.
Yeah.
And that goal has to be achieved over a period of not just days, but weeks, months, and years.
Right.
So the entertainment group generally, they're always on chronic alert.
Right.
They always have to be in a chronic state of maintenance. And that's true for the general consumer as well. So you can't just repair the lower eyelid area in one fell swoop. No. It may take a dozen treatments spaced 3 to 4 weeks apart. So that person has to know at least 6-12 months in advance that in the role they're playing in life and to the public, a certain body part, a certain anatomy part has to look its best. And that's a project.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a certain laser or device you would use for like you said, the stomach area?
So for the belly area, usually there are lasers that confirm that area. They're usually called neodymium YAG lasers. And those are invisible light lasers. They're in the infrared spectrum, and they work as lasers by generating heat. Okay. Globally, there are probably a dozen companies that make various machines. So I'll go to the trouble of not naming a machine because in a different clinic or in a different country or in a different state, the physician will have a comparable instrument under a different name. Okay. So it's confusing to the consumer. But I can tell you, infrared light can penetrate about 20, 30 sheets of paper deep into the belly button area and that area and firm the tissue. So there you're using an infrared laser, invisible light, to heat tissue to get the tissue to repair itself.
Amazing.
That's the point I'm making. Yeah. So that's a invisible neodymium YAG laser. You might find the same is true for the inner arm. The inner arm that can be a little bit wiggly, a little bit flappy sometimes, or a little bit wrinkly. A comparable instrument, but there it might be radio waves. It might be not a laser. It may be what we call fractionated radio wave. And that's administered with small microneedles and a cream anesthetic.
Is this painful?
So, and it's not painful because of the cream anesthetic, and the belly firming issue isn't painful either, because there's either no pain to the procedure, or there's a topical cream anesthetic, or some other method for getting rid of potential discomfort.
Okay.
Because if there's a lot of discomfort associated with something, nobody is going to continue the course of treatment.
Right.
We're living, you know this. So, even exercise or yoga or Pilates, you have to make it fun, and it can't be too much work, or else nobody will stick to the program.
1,000%.
So, 1,000%. So whether it's a slightly wiggly belly or an inner thigh or the inner arm, an actor may require that area to be extremely visible, not just during an award show, but during the filming, which could be a 6 or 8 week or 12-week project. That area has to be worked on starting perhaps 6 to 12 months before it's visible.
Okay. That makes total sense. So, one thing that you said when we were just talking about that I want to call out is that these people have discipline with their diets, with their lifestyle. And I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on diet and exercise, those types of things when it comes to skin. What is the best diet and what is the best like lifestyle supplements, things like that to be on for your skin? Because I think things like running, for example, I've always heard that if you run as a form of exercise, your skin can sag. I don't know if that's true or not. And then like also eating healthy fats, like that's a good thing for skin. So can you give us your thoughts on that?
Well, as you know, as well as I do, nutritional things are complex.
Yeah.
Exercise, everything in the world of looking your best and feeling your best is complicated. Nothing's easy. That's why it's called a job.
Yeah.
We tell all of our patients, they may come in for problem X, but it takes me such a long time to tell them what's involved in repairing problem X. It always involves some nutritional lifestyle thing. That's why I always call it, there has to be a change in the patient's lifestyle. So I'll give you an example. In the world of calorie intake, which currently now this intermittent fasting is popular. You know better than I. This intermittent fasting is popular. I'm not sure that that's a great idea.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's a great idea. Not that I'm a nutritionist or a dietitian or any of this, but I can tell from experience that small calorie intake scattered many, many times during the day into small fractions, that's good. The problem people have is control of quantity portions. That's what I find to be the case. So I will tell someone, I'll say, look, this skin issue is because your protein intake is too low, your healthy oil fat intake is too low, and your carbohydrate intake is the majority of your calories, and that's bad. So I will tell them, look, if you're in this office, chances are you understand whether something is organic, free range, things of this sort. So you want high quality ingredients that you're putting into your body. It influences your complexion, right? It just does.
Yeah.
That no matter what magic I do in this office, and I instruct you to do at home, if the nutrition, the fuel for your machine is poor, the results are going to be poor.
Yeah.
So I tell them you need whether it's fish, meat, chicken, poultry, whatever it is protein wise. I usually tell them you're in the 30-40% calorie protein. If you're otherwise healthy enough, it's true, there are people with various internal organ issues involving the kidneys where protein issues may or may not be a concern. But you need more protein to get the components of protein, amino acids to relate to collagen elastic tissue matrix production. So I'm not sure the intermittent fasting is good. I think more of a small, slow, intermittent stream of calories is important, where protein is a big part of it. The good fats, the avocado, the cottonseed oil, I mean, a variety of things are the good fats in a sense because they're oils. It's the carbs where everybody has a problem with. And in this country, in particular, this carbohydrate thing, because you both know carbohydrates are cheap compared to protein. So when you're eating a gigantic bun on some fast food item, that bun is a ton of calories.
Yeah.
But is the benefit there? For your skin, for sure not. And for your figure waistline, it's not. And for your muscle mass, it's not. And for your metabolism, it's not.
Yeah.
So I tell them it's the fruits, the low glycemic index or the low sugar fruits. So I tell them, look, instead of eating something that has tons of carrot and beets, try to have things that are more in the leafy green vegetables and the green fruit categories. So it's the common things, the Mediterranean diet, the keto diet, these always come up, but it's not so much a matter in my world of educating patients for skin health. It's not just telling them, go read up on the Mediterranean diet or read up on the keto diet, because they're, number one, not going to do it. And number two, they're going to carry it to some extreme. That's the problem. People are people of extremes. So if you tell them, get yourself some organic turkey and have that, and maybe you'll have 4 or 5 ounces daily and maybe 4 or 5 ounces of wild salmon. They'll say, oh, well, in that case, if he said 4 or 5 ounces, let's double it up. Okay. It's the mentality of
all or nothing.
All or nothing, or more is better.
Yeah.
And more and better, the two of you know, is not the way to do it.
No.
I was just saying that the entertainment people know less is more. So the nutrition part is critically important to my patient base in terms of getting the value out of my treatments.
Yeah.
So nutrition, huge. The exercise part, I have an interesting view on. I personally exercise every day, but I'm not doing massive cardio workouts every day. I'll do a little bit of stretching. I'll do a little bit of light weights. I don't have to work up a massive sweat to know I've exercised. So I'll do a little bit every day. So after this podcast, I may go and I'll spend an hour in the gym, but I may do this and that and the other thing. So I'm not trying to bench press 350 pounds.
I love it.
Okay?
That is my philosophy too. Less is more.
Right. So when it comes to this running and jogging and all this business, I personally think that it's not a matter of skin sagging, but my personal view on running, when you're pounding the pavement, it's not good for your joints.
Yeah.
Do I think it's good for your soft tissue? No. I think you want to do sort of like the elliptical trainer, the bicycle type things. You want to do things that have a rhythm rather than a pounding percussion effect.
Yeah.
So there may be some advertisers of certain equipment that would like to shoot me, but I'm just saying that I try to convince women and men not to go for a massive run.
Yeah.
You can do the treadmill, you can do, just slow, gradual, because the cardio is there. And it all adds up to the same end result without the injuries. So whether it's nutritional or whether it's the exercise part, and then there's the peace of mind. And then you can speak to it as well as I, because if people aren't sleeping because of something bothering them, it's going to show up on their skin. Every day I see someone who's been on a skin program and a treatment program and have been watching their diet and exercise. And the next time I see them, I walk into the room and I'll say immediately, what's bothering you? Why? Because they look totally different. and then they'll tell me something about a relative or a romance or something, whatever it is. There's some component emotionally, mentally, that can cause a rapid decline in health, and it's visible.
Yeah.
When someone is worried, you can see it, and in a matter of days or so, it takes its toll on someone's beauty.
1,000%. Like mental health and stress plays such a role in all of the stuff that it comes out on your skin. Do you see that with a lot of people with acne?
You see it in people with acne. You see it generally in discoloration, that sallow look to the skin. You'll see it in terms of crepiness of the skin, because you'll find that people start deviating from their usual lifestyle. They start doing weird things. They'll start staying out late at night. They're going to start going to multiple clubs. They're going to start abusing themselves, even though they don't know it, and which feeds more of an emotional impact negatively. And then it eventually shows up in the way they look. Mm-hmm. So when somebody is distraught, I walk into the room and I look at them. You know, I'm known for the following. You know, I walk into a room, whether it's a new patient or an existing patient or someone I haven't seen for 6 or 12 or 18, whatever the story is. I walk into the room and I'll say, if things look okay, I'll say, so what can I do for you today? When I walk into the room and I can see something is off, I'll walk into the room and I'll say, what's wrong with you? What happened? And they'll say, what do you mean? I'll say, I'm looking at you and I know that there's something off. So is it physical or is it emotional, or have there been too many parties, or all of a sudden is there some bad habit or something? Because I can see it. Mm-hmm. The skin has a crepiness, a dehydration, the color is off, the glimmer in the eye is off. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you can absolutely see it when people start changing habits.
My wife always says that physique and BMI is 80% diet, 20% exercise, essentially what you do in the gym. Would you generally agree with that on those two components?
I think most people will always tell you things are 50-50. I think the gift you were born with is probably 20-30% of what it is that you end up being. But that 20-30%, if it's managed properly, makes you a 100% winner. Yeah. So everybody's born with a little something different. But let's say 20-30% genetic. The rest of it is lifestyle, emotional, psychologic, dietary, and just consistency with a pattern. I saw a woman earlier today. I've got to tell you, I saw a woman today. She's been a patient for decades. I've got to tell you, this woman, if I showed you a photo of her, she looks true, the skincare, but it's the procedures I've done, the skincare, the program in life, but she looks easy, 30 years younger than her chronologic age.
Wow.
And that's because of her discipline. Absolutely nothing throws her off in terms of the game plan. Mm-hmm. You know, that's true in athletics. If you ever watch and whether it's hockey or baseball or soccer or whatever it is, there's discipline to a team's action that leads to a victory. If something's off with the pitcher in a ball game, or the quarterback, well, whatever it is, if there's one part of it that's off, the game's gone.
Yeah.
And that's true with people. You have to, when you're in the wellness, well-being, appearance world, you have to touch on all those things. So yes, skincare, home care.
Yeah.
The home care program is important. The procedural things I do are important, but you've got to emphasize to the consumer that what they eat consistently will either have a positive overall effect or not. Their exercise, they're just paying attention to the original directive.
Hey fam, if you are listening here, then you may be someone who deals with chronic overwhelm, bloating, anxiety, and weight you can't lose, maybe hair loss or skin conditions. If one of those things rings true for you, the Wellness by Kelly Health and Hormones course is available to help you get to the root cause and solve the issue in a way that's sustainable and gives you your lifestyle with lasting results. No more diets or quick fixes, but real health and vitality for the long run. My course runs through everything from what labs to test for to what protocols to implement given what's off in your blood work. We cover a variety of hormonal imbalances and how to heal them, plus the mindset work that you'll have to do to change your habits. If you're ready for an environment where you can learn the tools and truly heal to feel your best, most aligned, light, confident version of you, then this course is for you. If you're feeling called to join the WBK Health and Hormones course, head to the link in the show notes to learn more, where you'll get my membership included with your purchase.
I want to come back to home care because that's a big part of what I do is use all of your home care products. So I want to come back to that. But before I do, I want to be selfish for a second. My biggest issue, as you know, is hyperpigmentation. I don't want to have to wear makeup, and I like to have glowy, youthful skin. First part, what are most of your patients coming to you for? Is it acne? Is it hyperpigmentation? Is it anti-aging? What are most people walking into your office asking for? And then for my selfish concerns, what causes hyperpigmentation and how do we start to fix it?
I'm glad you're asking, because the answer is really interesting.
Okay.
Most people would think the entertainment people or the general patient I see, because in this office, everybody I see, we honestly consider a VIP. Every patient we see is a VIP. When they come here looking for care, there's no discrimination in terms of this, that, or the other thing. Everybody's equal. When you take that 50 patients a day or 40 patients a day or whatever the number is, the number one concern is correction of irregular color. It's fascinating that the majority of people love their ancestry color, their ethnic, family, genetic program color. What they don't like is when there's a mismatch, whether it's on the face, the neck, the décolleté, the legs, the arms, whatever it is. When there's a mismatch in color, it's sort of like the entire program is off.
Yeah.
Because no matter what you're wearing, you have to use excessive makeup to try to camouflage it, which bothers people. Everybody thinks that women wear makeup because, the old expression used to be is if you don't put on your makeup, you're not dressed to enter the outside world, which is not today's expression. Most people don't want to wear cosmetic camouflage. They want their uniform color. That's always issue number one. Celebrity, entertainment, political, or whatever, the less makeup, the better everyone looks. That's worth repeating. The less
That's what
cosmetic,
my husband says all the time to me.
the less cosmetic camouflage, the better the whole story looks, because then your natural radiance is apparent, which leads to that subconscious perception of healthiness.
Yeah.
When there's a whole bunch of junk on top of the skin, no matter what body part it is, there's something off with the formula. And there's a taste to makeup. There's a scent to makeup. And the majority of men, when I come home to see my lovely wife, Danny, she wears no makeup because she knows I don't like the scent of it.
Yeah.
It's funny. So most men don't like the look of cosmetic camouflage because, number one, it hides something. And I think Chad will agree. I mean, it's funny. It's just a funny camouflage that leads to a misperception of overall happiness and health. So color correction is always a very big part of no matter what a Lancer patient comes in for.
Yeah.
The color correction part is the most complicated thing to repair because it can't be surgically fixed. So you need to either with home care repair it, start the process of repair of color correction or uniformity. And then there are sometimes instruments that we use. We'll use fractionated radio waves, or we'll sometimes use PRP, plasma injectables. Sometimes we'll use chemical peeling agents of various combinations. So there are various tools that we have that helps correction of color mismatch, but it's always a home care program that's needed.
Number one.
Now, color is always number one. There's a home care program, and it's never the same for two given individuals. So if you have two sisters coming in, let's say they're even twins, it's going to be a different program because discoloration occurs in different types. Some people have too much color. Some people have not enough color in some places. It's called vitiligo, things of that sort. So there could be too much color present or not enough color present. So, but no matter what, it leads to a mismatch. The mismatch is the problem, the non-continuity. It's sort of like not matching your socks. You know, there's something off here. So the discoloration, which is usually excess color, there's a genetic predisposition, because you were asking me about causes. Whether it's male or female, 15-year-olds or 50-year-olds, there's a genetic predisposition for this. So if someone comes from a genetic part of the world where, let's say, dark circles around the eyes are a color mismatch, that's very common in certain global parts of the planet. The rest of the skin may look fine in terms of blending, but the circles around the eyes are dark. And sometimes people will have too much environmental exposure, not just sunlight, but visible light or blue light. And everybody's now heard about blue light and screens and this and that. So part is genetic, part of it is genetic time of onset. So some people are perfectly fine until they're 20, 25. And then this discoloration creeps in. And let's say it's discoloration where there's too much. So you'll have the genetic predisposition for it to occur at, let's say, age 20. And usually there's something that has to do with hormone sensitivity, and it's usually estrogen.
So that's like why women will get melasma when they're pregnant.
Right. And sometimes they'll get melasma just because of the normal hormonal shifting that occurs even without pregnancy. Yeah. So you'll find that some people genetically predisposed to melasma, which is sort of a bizarre term, but excessive color and blotchiness. Those people, their natural estrogen cycle is a little bit off, and the skin cells called melanocytes are very sensitive to that cycle. So that's where you have a young woman, normal estrogen irregularities, even though her menstrual cycle period may be normal, that develops melasma. Then you're going to find the person who takes birth control pills, it gets even worse. Then you find people who, when they go off the birth control pill with pregnancy, it really gets out of control. So there are various shades of discoloration, and you have to sort of be a detective to find out what's the problem. Is it class 1, 2, or 3 discoloration? So what's the problem? What's the location? What's the time of onset, known as the history? And then you have to find an approach to treating it. So again, it's common. It's hugely important because, again, we get back to where people don't want to wear camouflage. And so once you have the history, the diagnosis, you have to get an approach to treatment. And that's always a home care program. And sometimes it's lightening agents. Sometimes it's alpha hydroxy acids. Sometimes it's retinoids. Sometimes it's exfoliation. So we'll have patients on various programs depending on the location of the problem, the extent of the problem, and the time course. And the final thing that's hugely important is there are very few skin discoloration, what we call skin virgins, that come to Lancer Dermatology. They've usually been monkeyed around with in a dozen different offices. So there you have, added to the story, treatments that have failed but have compounded the discoloration. So there you have somebody who comes in with a problem that's been augmented by treatments in other parts of Los Angeles or New York or Chicago or London or Beijing, who knows where they are. But usually people show up in my door with what I would call complex discoloration, and we have to sort of unravel the mystery.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. And I like that you said that everyone is on a different protocol, because I think that so many other doctors out there will just put the same, all these different patients with different discolorations on the same protocol. And that's why you're amazing at what you do. But one thing that just came to my mind was, so the first time I got Botox was with you in my mid 20s, when I was like just coming out of SC and living in LA. And I went to New York and I overdid it. And I came back to you and you told me, you're like, you overdid it. And you're like, you don't need it here, here, and here. So what's the right age for people to start doing Botox? How much is too much? And is my husband old enough to for a man to start getting it?
I got to tell you, Dr. L, I'm getting some crow's feet here.
See, he said the magic words that he's noticed.
Yep.
Something is a little bit askew, and maybe I should do something about it.
Yeah.
You see, that's the problem, Chad. When you have such an attractive wife that you got to keep up with them, that's the problem.
Well,
you're telling me.
You see, that's the problem. When you have a significant other, spouse in particular, that's looking stunning, then you start wondering, are they going to know that I'm the husband, or am I something else in the story? So you see, that's the problem. And so the answer to the question is, whether it's color correction across the board, important, whether it's lines, folds, and wrinkles, the answer to the question is, when a person comes in and says, I think that my lip lines are too excessive, I'm not a smoker, and when I'm not moving, these lines bother me, then you know that a little bit of neuromodulator, which is Botox is one of the brands, is worthwhile to relax a little bit of the muscle that created the lines. Because that person will also say, hey, listen, Dr. Lancer, I don't want any filler put into my lips. I had it done before in Chicago. I didn't like it. It had to be dissolved. I don't want any filler in my lips. I just want the lines reduced because I don't want to look like I'm smoking all day. So that's where you use a little bit of neuromodulator. In this office, our favorite one, brand-wise, is called Dysport. So there's Botox, Dysport, Jeuveau, Xeomin. Anyway, there are different brands.
Yeah.
So when I use the word neuromodulator, it's generic for all those types. So when a patient says, listen, I need you to relax these lines a little bit, but for sure, I need to keep movement going because I don't want anybody to know I had anything done. That's the usual Lancer patient. They'll say, I just want this lightened up a bit. I don't want these big crow's feet that every time I smile and I'm happy, they wonder what's really going on. How old am I really? They want it reduced, not totally eliminated, but reduced. But the key to the answer in terms of what's the age, it's when the person doesn't like the trait. So it could be a 20-year-old. Mm-hmm. It could be a 25-year-old. It could be a 50-year-old. There are 50-year-olds that come in for the first time getting line severity reduced.
Wow.
So it's when it means something to the person. But if Chad says, I notice these crow's feet, number one, he knows the word or the expression crow's feet. So he's heard it somewhere. Okay. He's heard it somewhere. And I know it wasn't from you. Yeah, right. So when a male or a female patient of age X says, I don't like something, that's when you know it needs treatment.
So would you ever say, like, let's say some 20-year-old came into your office or a 19-year-old, would you say no?
And I tell them something else. I say, look in this mirror.
Yeah.
And I'll say, what bothers you? And they'll wrinkle their nose up and just, squint terribly. And they'll say, you see these lines? Mm-hmm. Dr. Lancer, I'm 18 and I shouldn't have these lines. I said, okay, great. Look in the mirror and be expression free. No lines at all. No expression lines or static lines. I said, you don't really need this because you have lines created by expression movement, but there are no lines present when you're at rest.
Mm.
If there are no lines present when you're at rest, you should, in theory, leave it alone. Because I oftentimes get patients asking me, well, Dr. So-and-so said that if I get injected to reduce the lines before I see them, it'll work better. That is not true. That's not true. You don't do prophylactic removal of lines before you have them. So it's when they're present at rest is the time we do things, because you want to make them go away.
Yeah.
That's the thing with relaxing expression lines. If you treat them, expression lines need ongoing movement to keep them lines.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have fine lines at rest, that's the time you put in, whether it's Botox or whatever, you put it in, they will totally disappear.
Right. So can it be preventative?
Well, if you have no lines to start with, only when you're expressing, then only if there's a really good reason. Let's say in the entertainment world, there's a role for that individual where they can't have any expression lines because they're playing a character that's supposedly 15 years younger, and it would not match. Well, that's a professional work-related event. But in general, if you have a senior in high school coming in saying, I just want Botox because my older sister got it and I think it's worthwhile doing, I'll explain to them that's not the way to look at it. You look at it when there's a need.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So to clear up these bad boys, how many shots of Botox or sessions would that typically entail?
So let's say
I'm not getting it.
Okay, so let's say for the, I don't call it crow's feet, I call it the lateral eye area. That skin, like usually that. In men, I'll put in 3 little droplets per side. Okay, why? Because a male patient that has no lines with any degree of expression looks odd. Yeah. It's like the deer in the headlight look. So you want to cut the line intensity with movement by about 70%. If you do that, the lines at rest will be gone, but they will still have expression when there's movement and a reason for there to be lines. So if you reduce it by 70%, then at a social function, when he's supposed to be expressive, it'll be expressive.
Okay. So talk to us about the Lancer method, your 3-step program for at-home care. I mean, and now there's a bunch of other steps that you can add in. I have everything that you sell, but how did you come up with that? And tell us a little bit about why that piece is so important.
Well, here's the story. Going back to 40 years ago, 1983 is when I first, I like to say that Lancer Skincare was born in 1953 when I was born.
When you were born.
But when I was born. So if I was born in 1953, I'd like to have the line to the brand being it was since 1953. But the truth of the matter, it's since 1983. And in 83, when I came out of training, I learned a very interesting lesson. I learned that very few people globally have an understanding of home self-directed skincare. Most people in all socioeconomic groups, all ancestry groups, have very little concept on what skincare is on a home level. In the old days, meaning like the 1940s and 50s, the concept of a cleanser, a toner, and a moisturizer were really the 3 components of home skincare. No matter what the brand was, whether it was, some drugstore brand or whatever, there was always a cleanser, a toner, which is an alcohol-based product or a witch hazel product, and a moisturizer. That was the mainstream. And that's what most people, when I got into practice in 1983, that's what most people thought. So we started a program when I started seeing patients. No matter what somebody was seeing me for, it could have been a skin cancer, it could have been psoriasis, it could have been an injury, whatever the appointment was for. I had the staff say, you must bring with you on your first visit whatever home skincare you're using. And the patient would always say to the receptionist, well, what do I need that for? I'm coming in to have the skin cancer on my nose removed. And they say, trust me, Dr. Lance will want to know. And it amazed me that the majority of people would bring in bags of stuff. Some of the containers were never opened. They got them as Christmas gifts. Some of the containers were opened and hardly used. So people would bring in 10, 15, 20 products. And I say, oh, what is this for? And they say, I haven't the slightest idea. Somebody gave it to me. I never used it. And that's it. So it confirmed to me that most people have no idea of how to take care of their skin. 1983. So I said, let's re-educate the global public. That's where the Lancer skincare method started. And there was a method originally for anti-aging. Then that was 3 steps. Then very shortly after it became the sensitive skin 3-step method. Then there became the blemish prone 3-step method. So it went from 3 products to 9 products: anti-aging, sensitive skin, and blemish prone. And I reinvented the concept of home care because it was the polish was always used first. So it wasn't a cleanse, polish, nourish. It was always a polish, rinse, cleanse, rinse, and then the nourish. Why? Because that's the biology of skin. It's sort of like people who alter their nutrition by eating certain things in various orders. Skincare required a different approach because if you think about it, if you have a floor you want to clean, right? You want to get the grime and grease and dirt off first before you actually clean it. So you want to do the main scrubbing part first. Then you want to rinse it away. Then you want to really clean up the floor before you put on the finishing coat. Skin is no different in any way. The biology of skin required an exfoliation first, rinsing the skin, and whether it was an anti-aging polish or a blemish polish or a sensitive skin polish, there was a polish first, rinse the skin, cleanse the skin to get off all the debris. And then when you have a clean slate, that's when you apply the nourishing product as a sealant. And slowly the chemistry of those 9 products changed and various other advanced formulas were added in. I think we have now 52 products where they're all targeted. So there's got to be a reason for using something. So there's always a polish, cleanse, nourish. Then there might be a need for an alpha hydroxy acid, an advanced retinol, a vitamin C. There may be a need for a peptide, et cetera, et cetera. So it's always adding something to the base of polish, cleanse, nourish method. And then depending on the person's individual needs, something is added always before the nourish.
Okay. So if we were going to tell our listeners, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever it is, to get a product, you would say the method, that's the one product to get.
So I think that the Lancer skincare novice always starts with the polish, cleanse, nourish. Now, a given individual might need, I'll give you an example. Somebody might say, well, I want to look my best. So it's an anti-aging, but I have some blemishes and I have pretty sensitive skin. So they might do the polish, cleanse, nourish as follows. They might have the blemish polish, rinse. Then they might have the anti-aging cleanse. And then they might use the sensitive nourish.
I love it.
So out of the 9 products, they may mix it up depending on their need. And then as time goes on, 2, 4, 6 weeks down the road, and they see the major benefit, they'll add the advanced C, or they'll advance the glycolic acid or the advanced retinol. They'll slowly add to the program to increase either that radiance to the skin or reduce pore structure or improve the color texture blend.
See, I love that you start simple because you know what I do. I'm a health coach, and with my clients, like I can't introduce too many different things with diet and exercise at once because it overwhelms them. So having the 3 steps and then saying, okay, then we can add on from there. Once you see the benefits when you're consistent, I love that.
That's the only way to do it because no matter what it is in life, and the two of you will agree, when you start to improve your lifestyle, you have to start slowly. In exercise, if you start with a very aggressive workout program with a very complex trainer, you will not stay with that program.
Yeah.
If you start with a very, very harsh nutritional shift, you will fail. You have to start slowly. So the Polish Cleanse nourishes the way. You see the benefit, and then you add various things to it as need arises. It sort of comes with the appetite.
Yeah.
It's true for anything. When I stopped, or I not stopped, but I started phasing meat out of my diet, I had to go slowly.
Yeah.
You phase it out of one of the meals per day, and then it's less per week, and then slowly, you're down to a certain amount. But it's true with anything in life. It's a very good point.
It's sort of like romance, right? Look at the two of you. Okay. You see, it's terrific to see the two of you. I remember the wedding very, very clearly. It was a spectacular event, and the two of you look more closely bound than ever. And it builds. And so everything in life is a building process.
Yeah.
True.
Home care, nutrition, attitude. Attitude is hugely important.
So I have two more questions for you that I think our audience is really going to love. One is with regards to, because I have a lot of women who follow me who are like in their 50s. They, their kids just left home and they'll say like, oh, I want to go get a facelift. What's the step before the facelift? Is it all therapy? Is it profound laser? Is it, I don't know. You tell me. I don't even know what's out there anymore.
So let me tell you, the current trend in the consuming public. Number one, the public is far more educated now than they were not only 40 years ago, but 5 years ago or 2 years ago. The public is becoming very self-aware, self-educated. The majority of people I see do not wake up in the morning and say, I need a facelift or a breast implant, or I need my thighs sucked out. They don't do that. People don't do that anymore. That was something that was popular in the 1970s, 1980s. They just don't go to bed and have some bad dream in the morning and say, oh, I need something surgically done. The public doesn't think that way anymore. And I think it's the education and the restraint and the less is more concept being strong. So the majority of people don't jump on the surgical platform first. They usually want something minimally invasive or non-invasive to either firm or improve a process. So let's go through the various things. They'll say, well, I was thinking I need a facelift because I don't like the way my eyebrow position is relative to my forehead line. So I think I need a forehead lift, and that goes with a facelift. So that's not what people do anymore. They'll say, I need you to relax my forehead. Let me see how things look with a little bit of neuromodulator, a little bit of volume, and let's go from there. So the slow, gradual approach to the neuromodulators or the toxins. And then with volume, also less is more. We'll say, I don't want gigantic lips. I just want you to perk up the Cupid's bow a little bit. Let's see how that goes. So it's the small trial and error thing that people do. In terms of skin firming and skin lifting, there's a whole big difference between injecting a gallon of filler into someone's cheeks and slowly firming the architecture that already exists.
Right.
So that's when you hear about Ultherapy is the name of a machine that uses focused high-intensity ultrasound. Accent Prime is an instrument that uses ultrasound and radio waves to use combined technologies. But they're using an energy-based device that generates a heat profile that stimulates the skin cells that make new collagen and elastic tissue to make more collagen and elastic tissue. It's a very interesting thing, and your listeners will love this. The first 20, 25 years of life are the times of tissue accumulation, whether it's bone or muscle mass or skin firmness or texture. It's the accumulation period. After age 20, 25, tissue loses certain abilities to self-repair at roughly, and mass and a variety of things, at roughly 1% per year. So if you're looking at someone who's 45, they're about 20% depreciated in terms of working material. But it doesn't mean that they need cutting and stitching. And it doesn't mean that they need a gallon of filler injected. It means that they need to firm and lift the architecture.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether it's Accent Prime, whether it's Alt Therapy, whether it's the M8 or Morpheus 8, or whether it's a dozen other machines, we always try to externally improve the architecture before starting to cut away tissue and have scars around the ears and have parts of the hairline missing and risk anesthesia. You know, a facelift usually takes 4 to 6 to 8 hours. That's general anesthesia.
Right.
A lot of bad things can happen. So people aren't running from zero to surgery right away. Now they want things that have low risk, low downtime, and have the potential for a slow, gradual improvement.
I think that's a great answer. And I think that you're so right. I think that low downtime is what everybody wants these days. People don't want to be sitting at home with like weeks and weeks on end. So that makes total sense. The last question that I have on my end, and I don't know if Chad has any more up his sleeve, but so many of my clients deal with hormonal imbalances, and what that results in is acne. And so, I had acne. I did a cycle of Accutane. My brother, same thing. What would your best treatment recommendation be for someone coming to you with acne? Because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with.
You know, in my office, we always call it blemishes. So It sounds classier.
I like it. I like it.
We call it blemishes because, and when people give blemishes all sorts of names, it sounds bad. So first of all, let's put in this office, a little bit of a spin where we say, okay, so you have blemishes. And then I'll tell people, blemishes are genetic. Mm-hmm. Think about it. There are some people at birth, they pop out of the mother's womb and they have blemishes. That's called neonatal acne. Mm-hmm. There are some people who never get a single blemish until they're 50. There are some people, commonly, who get it in their late teens and 20s. And there are some people, by the way, who only get blemishes in places you can't imagine. They never get a facial blemish, a chest blemish, or a back blemish. They'll only get blemishes on the butt. So I'm just saying there are multiple scenarios for, let's say, acne. Okay. Yeah. We always start with home care, topical, and we always start by encouraging a change in lifestyle, because the following things are true about all blemishes. There's a genetic predisposition, and then there are things that trigger that predisposition to unfold. It's usually stress. It's usually dietary poor habits. And it's just an emotional makeup of their day-to-day routine. So lifestyle change is a huge part of improving blemishes. So the diet for sure, the low glycemic index, the low carbohydrate. If you watch what you eat, there are many people in the entertainment business that will never take oral medication for a variety of reasons. So they can't take Accutane, they can't take antibiotics, they won't take birth control pills, a whole bunch of things. So they won't take pills. With simple home skincare like the blemish protocol and a little bit of glycolic vitamin C and the advanced retinol and maybe a little bit of a caviar lime mask and the exfoliating mask, certain topical things and dietary change will get them under the proper route to clearing their blemishes. For most people who will take medication, I have to tell you, very few people respond to oral antibiotics. And if they do respond, it's for a very brief period of time. It's called tachyphylaxis, where you get accustomed to the antibiotic and it stops working. So there's home care, there's lifestyle change, and then there are oral medications. Antibiotics, we only prescribe them if someone comes in and they say, well, my doctor in Chicago told me that this worked and it worked pretty well for a while. Can we at least try it? I'll refill it for them. but it's not my to go to method. So there's oral antibiotics. There are contraceptive estrogen supplements, because all blemishes have a hormone component to them, spikes of testosterone. So when we see the Olympic athletes, those female runners are a skin nightmare in terms of blemishes. They have a very low body mass index, very little fat. They have usually some sort of hormonal irregularity in terms of high testosterone. And they usually do require some oral medication to sort of overcome the skin's response to testosterone. And we'll sometimes give them a medication called aldactone. That's a medication it's not an antibiotic, it's not a hormone, it's not Accutane. And it's sort of designed to reduce skin sensitivity to testosterone without changing their hormone level. So there's a home care, there's a lifestyle, and usually there's an oral medication. And I deal with a population that has to predictably look good.
Right.
And so in my office, isotretinoin, which is the chemical name for Accutane, and in this country there are about 4 or 5 brands. Isotretinoin is commonly used in my office, and properly done, in my hands, it's been a very good drug. There are many people who have issues with it and its safety, but we've never had a problem. I think probably I've treated 25,000 patients with that drug, and I've never had an issue. But it may have to do with my patient population. I'm not sure. But the bottom line is blemishes are important. It has an impact on someone's self-esteem. It has an impact on how other people relate to them. And in my world, blemishes are important. To some other physicians, they'll say it's just a pimple, big deal. In my world, where I understand and talk to these patients, appearances matter.
Yeah.
Appearance is important. It's a self-esteem, a self-image, and how you relate to other people.
Yeah.
So last question. I think our listeners would be remiss if we didn't talk about that big skin damaging ball of fire in the sky. Just quickly, what's your take on the sun? Is it best to just cover up and avoid contact, in most cases, or does SPF and sunscreen truly work?
Well, it's an important point. Now, let me tell you this. There are people I see, very prominent athletes, who still give me the excuse that they're chronically in the sun without sunscreen use because of the vitamin D issue, which couldn't be further from reality. I mean, most people from diet and supplements get plenty of vitamin D, so you don't have to burn yourself to smithereens to get enough vitamin D. So the vitamin D sunlight issue is crazy, but it still exists. All I can tell you is that sun exposure across the board is a big problem. That's why skin cancer rates are skyrocketing. And that's why you'll know, besides the skin being the largest organ, it's the number one cancer is in skin. Whether it's one of the main types or one of the more esoteric types, skin cancers are a big deal and a huge expense and can be quite disfiguring to treat. So the sunscreen use, yes, it's important. And I think it's important. There's a mineral sunscreen that we launched in our brand, in the Lancer Skincare brand, because it's extremely good and the consumers love it. But sunscreen is part of the equation. And I tell all of the patients, sunscreen is a habit. You have to learn the habit, teach your children, teach yourself, teach the people around you. Sunscreen use is important. But sun shielding is more important, or at least as important, meaning you have to try to avoid a lot of direct sun exposure because no sunscreen is perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so sunscreen, yes, is important. The importance of it is obvious, but sun avoidance to an extent is also important. So if you're an outdoor person, let's say you're a golfer. If you're a golfer, it'd be better if you have that 6 a.m. tee off time and you're pretty much finished by 9. As opposed to starting at noon and finishing at 3. That's probably not a good tee off time. So I'm just saying that practice sun safe reduction is a good policy. Sunscreen, sun reduction, just shielding yourself. It's sort of like a bulletproof vest. It's much better to stay out of the line of fire than rely on the vest to save your life. So I personally think that's my view on life. So sunscreen important, but it's not the total key. So don't fool yourself into thinking the sunscreen is protecting me, because the truth of the matter is all sunscreens need to be applied roughly at every 90 minutes or so. No matter what it says on the label, you need to reapply sunscreen, and most people do not.
Yeah.
I think globally, less than 10% of the global population use sunscreen. And the majority of that 10% don't use it properly. They'll put it on a little bit, they'll forget about it, and then 8 hours later, they have a ring around the tub sun exposure.
I have to tell you, Chad's actually so much better about using sunscreen and actually shielding himself from the sun than I am. I need to really
I tell her I golf with a sombrero. I mean, it's a full on extended hat because, we live in Vegas. It's sun.
Yeah.
24/7.
But he always tells me, like, we need to put sunscreen on the kids. It's like you said, like, it's a habit that you teach your children. And so I need to be better about it.
It's an important thing. And we're probably running out of time, but I'll tell you, if you teach your children the sun avoidance, the sun reduction, and the sunscreen use, it'll just save them a ton of grief later.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't get, it's very interesting. When you try to tell patients that it causes skin cancers, nobody's listening to you. But if you tell them it makes you older looking, then they start listening to you, right? So I tell all patients, I said, forget the skin cancer part, but it's going to really make you all spotty and blotchy, and you're going to get really old and ugly looking. They say, okay. I'm going to use the sunscreen.
Yeah.
I'm going to practice sun avoidance. I'm going to get a big umbrella, a gigantic sombrero, and I'm going to tee off at 6 a.m.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Dr. Lancer, we could seriously talk to you all day. We have a million more topics we could cover. We would love to have you back on, but thank you for today. We are so grateful for your time and for everything that you have taught our audience. Thank you. Thank you. And you can find all, if not most, of the products that we talked about today on lancerskincare.com. And at where else, Dr. Lancer? Tell everybody else where you can find.
No, let's see. It's on Lancer Skincare. It's in Bergdorf, Neiman Marcus. It's in Nordstrom. It's globally, just about all 5 continents. I'm fortunate that's done quite well.
Amazing.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
I hope I have the first skincare line on Mars. We'll look forward to that.
We're sending it up there now.
Listen, the two of you have been terrific. I very much enjoyed it.
We really hope that you enjoyed that episode. You can follow me on Instagram at Wellness by Kelly. And if you're new around here, you can sign up for the WBK 7-day free trial, where you can get access to all of my low impact workouts, blood sugar balancing, plant-based recipes, and guided meditations, all available on wellnessbykelly.com and on the WBK app.
Hey, thanks for listening.
Please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also connect with us on social media at Wellness by Kelly. Drop us a DM for who you want to hear from.